tells your story.
Well, today we want to talk a little bit about Hamilton. Now, I'm not sure if you've watched Hamilton over this past 2 or 3 weeks, but Hamilton was released on Disney Plus about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And for the millions of us who could not afford that $900 ticket back when it was on Broadway, we were very intrigued as what this Hamilton play was all about. I've heard great things about it, and we wanted to see it for ourselves. And so in the midst of watching Hamilton, I ended up really discovering a lot of learning lessons. And so here I am with my family. Here I am. We're sitting down and we're watching it together. I invited my mother over. And so all of us are in this family room and we are watching Hamilton. And through the midst of it, I saw these learning lessons. And so we're going to talk about these learning lessons today and how it can work with your classroom, how it can work inside your classroom, how it works with PBL. And so the theme of this entire part is, who's going to tell your story? Now, here's some research that I found very captivating. Today's students think differently. Today's learners just think differently. In an hour, your students, in an hour, we will forget more than half of what we've learned. And it gets a little worse because in a day, we will only remember about 1/3 of what we actually learned. And so in other words, the stats said that about 17% of today's students actually remember what they learned throughout the day. So this is why it's important to scaffold. This is why it's important to reteach. This is why it's important to do turn and talks. This is why it's important to do the chunking. And so if you realize and if you notice, a lot of today's teachers, somehow or another only chunk into threes. They'll say, okay, I want to give you 3 key points. If you notice on YouTube or on Instagram or even in your religious circles, they will always say, I want to give you 3 points or give you 4 points because they know anything outside of that, you may forget. Well, I'm going to give you 3 points. Here's the very first point. My name is Alexander Hamilton. And there's a million things I haven't done yet. But just you wait. Just you wait. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Andre Daughty. I am born and raised in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. My dad was born in this small place called McLeod, Oklahoma. And after tracing lineage and so forth, my dad's family, as far as we could trace, came from Louisiana. And the reason why they came to Oklahoma is because they were slaves. They ran away. And at that time, Oklahoma was considered Indian territory, so there were a lot of minorities, specifically Black or Native American indigenous people who ran away, who hid in Oklahoma. So there were a lot of towns, and this is my dad's house. And he had this young guy right here, Andre Daughty. The guy with the milk mustache right there, the guy who was pointing, he had Andre Daughty. And so Andre Daughty was a character. An absolute character. I was a kid in the class always in trouble. I was a kid in the class always making beats. I was a kid in the class always singing, always humming, always dancing, always rapping, always doing something musical. I really didn't know it at that time. Look at that face. That kid's face does not want to be in that picture. I was that student in class. I was the student who could do the work, who didn't mind doing the work, but I got bored really quickly with the work. So my escape was music. And so my mom and my dad realized that. My mom and my dad gave me the musical instruments in which they could afford. I'm still trying to figure out why is there underwear in the picture and why my mom and my dad chose to give me underwear and put it smack dab in this Christmas picture, but I was that kid. My brother was sort of that kid, and so he opted for sports. I enjoyed more musical instruments. And so all throughout school, I would constantly get in trouble. I would get sent outside in the hall because I was making too much noise. My teachers wanted to be quiet. Andre, be quiet in class. I would be quiet, so then I'd get my pen, and my pen became the musical instrument. And so I was always in trouble until I met this teacher. This teacher is Reginald Irons. This teacher was a band teacher. Mr. Irons saw the gift in me and said, son, we got to get you more involved in band. That one thing changed my life. I started off on the saxophone. I started to sing. And then that Christmas, my mama gave me this instrument. This instrument changed my life. Why? Because it had a drum pad on it. So not only could I tinker and play with the keys and not really know the music, but I could also make the beats. Changed my life. Mr. Irons also said, son, instead of always beating on the drums, on the desk, use your fingertips, beat on your thighs. It's much quieter, you can do it. So I started to do it. I started to make rhythms and thoughts and sounds and ideas. And then I went to band. And so during the fall, I got the opportunity to be in the marching band as a middle schooler. And then during the concert season, I got to play my saxophone. And then my high school years started. And this young lady changed my life. This young lady was the principal of my high school. This young lady would see me walking up and down the hall. She would hear me whistling and see me singing and humming. And she's like, you always joyful, aren't you? I'm like, I'm always joyful, absolutely. And she said, son, and then she leaned in. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a Black woman lean in and give you that look. She leaned in, she pulled down her glasses. She said, son, there's more in you. I stopped and I looked at her. What do you mean there's more in me? She said, son, there is more in you. She says, I want you to push. I want you to go. I want you to dig in because I see greatness in you. There is more in you. That did something to me. Miss Henderson did something to me that day. That following year, I started to work even harder. I became the drum major of a high school. And in most urban schools, the drum major and the band is very similar to an HBCU, a historically Black college and university. So we dance, we scoot, we get down, we dig in, we do all the things. And here I am, a drum major for one of those schools. And those two teachers, those two people in my life, Mr. Irons, Miss Henderson, they helped me get a scholarship. They helped me get a scholarship to Langston University, an HBCU. All because one teacher said, there's more in you. All because one teacher saw a gift in me that others did not see. And why am I saying this? Because that teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had a teacher who said the same thing. I'm going to give you some quick Oklahoma history here. There was a teacher named Miss Clara Looper. And back in the 60s, Miss Clara Looper was a teacher. And during the 60s of segregation, during the 60s of civil rights, during the 60s of all of the unrest, very similar today, she had a student. Student's name was Joyce Henderson. And they did walk-ins. She walked all around Oklahoma City with her students, and they had walk-ins. And the same thing that Miss Henderson told me was the exact same thing Clara Looper told her. There's more in you. And so Mrs. Henderson and so many of the other students of the Oklahoma City area did walk-ins. Mrs. Clara Looper went to jail several times. The same person who inspired me, Miss Henderson, was inspired by Clara Looper. Clara Looper was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. People may not know this. He was actually a pastor in Oklahoma City at a church called Calvary Baptist. And he saw Miss Looper. And they had a conversation. And he said, there's more in you. Now, Andre, why are you saying all of this? I'm saying this because today's students are amazing. Today's students are woke. There is more in today's students. So I'm telling you to stay woke. And woke is an action. Woke is being enlightened. Woke is seeing something and understanding that that something isn't right. And doing more. And being more. Today's students are woke. We as teachers have to wake up more. Let me give you some examples of woke being action. Her name is Greta. There's a million things she hasn't done yet. Just you wait. Here's another one. Her name is Natalie. A million things Natalie hasn't done yet. But just you wait. His name is Nolan. And Nolan saw the unrest around the world and the unrest around his city. There's a million things Nolan hasn't done yet. Just you wait. Or how about Kaya? And Kaya realized that there's some things that's just not right in her library. And she's not seeing books that look like her. There's a million things you haven't seen your students do yet. But just you wait. And what are we waiting on? And more and more and more. We're waiting on us as educators to say, there's more in you. You can do great things. What I'd like for you to do on your Nearpod, just real quick, if you don't mind, click on your Nearpod. I want to give you an example of students doing more, because these are our today's students. Our today's students, we oftentimes believe that they can't do enough, or we limit their creativity, or we limit their humanity. What I like for you to do, I like for you to push play on your Nearpod so you can actually see this happening in action.
What up, JR? What up, JR? What up? All right, hey, we kind of got you some Christmas gifts, wine. Everybody helped us donate. Everybody helped this is for you. You know how you told me you needed, like, you wanted a pair of 13s? We got you 2 pairs. Open it! Why don't you open it right now? Open it right now.
Oh, you got my favorite kind, too!
Hey, it's Rapping Terry. Right open, right open, right open. You got JR? What are they?
Green, my favorite color!
Pull them out!
JR, show them the shoes.
Show us the shoes, JR.
Take them out.
Thank you, guys! Y'all are the
And
best!
got some other one. One more.
I wonder what these are! Awesome!
Show everybody. Just want to wish you Merry Christmas, JR. This from all of us. Everybody here gave it to you.
Hey, Jared! Everybody get in here! Alright!
What do we say? What do we say? Family.
Family on 3!
1, 2, 3, family!
Andre, what are you saying? Real simple. We have a lot of students, and our students are really great. They don't know it yet. It is up to us as teachers, as educators, to tell them there's more in you and allow them to be the geniuses that they are in their own way. It's a million things they haven't done yet, but just you wait. Just you wait. And so about 5 years ago, I was in a school, helping a school, and I ran across Mrs. Henderson. And so I'm working with students, and I hear her voice, the same voice that told me, oh, you can do more. And so as soon as I hear it, I quit working with the students, and I run like I'm a little kid in a classroom, and I run to the hall, open the door, and I see Miss Henderson. And she instantly recognizes me. Doughty, exactly how she said it. So of course I go and give her a hug and all that, and she says, I knew it. And I said, what do you know, Miss Henderson? She said, I knew there would be more in you. Number 2, look around, how lucky we are to be alive right now. Because history is happening in the greatest city in the world. Wherever your city is, history is happening. And our students are watching. Our students are seeing this. Our students are recognizing this. And our students, they are creative in their own way. But oftentimes we as teachers get in the way of their creativity. I would love to give you a few examples real quick. Here's a 3rd grade student. Go ahead and push play on your device. This is a 3rd grader. This 3rd grader comes to school bored, sitting down, only doing paper pencil work, bored. The student goes home, gets on YouTube, and is learning how to do introduction videos to YouTube. And this 3rd grader sells those introductory YouTube videos to people online. They cash app her, and she's getting paid. Today's students are so dope. But oftentimes we just don't see it enough. Oftentimes we don't understand how dope they are because we only want them to do 1 or 2 things 1 or 2 ways. We want them to come to school and do PBL our way. It's got to look this way. It's got to be this way without the voice and choice. And if you were just to open up the door just a little and let students be who they are. Today's students are creative. Today's students are so dope. Let me give you another example. This student was told to cut a yard. So the student cut a yard. I love it. Our students are out of the box thinkers. And so as soon as we recognize this and understand that today's students may think a little different than how we think, and that's okay, then you can open up new ideas, new understandings. Today's students may want to be controversial. Today's students may want to do a project on the unrest of this country. Don't run away from it. Today's students are woke. They may not want to do a PBL, or they may not want to do a project on whales or a zoo. They may want to actually do a project on being activists. There's more in them. They're so creative. This young man, this young student goes inside of your classroom, is sitting inside of your classroom, and you can clearly tell this student has a gift. This student has a talent. This student is phenomenal. But this student never gets to show that creativity. Or the only time this student gets to show the creativity is in specials or in electives. That's not right. Look around, look around. Look how lucky we are to be alive right now. We have students who are so creative. And this is where PBL works great. This gives them that voice and choice, allowing them to open up that world of their creativity, aligned to the standards, aligned to the learning goals. Our students are so dope. So what are some ways that we can get them to tell their story? What are some ways that we can get them to be more creative? What are some ways that we can get them to share and to showcase their talents? Well, everything is on the phone now. There are so many students doing TikToks. It's not by chance, not at all. There are so many teachers trying to do the dances from the students on TikTok. It's not by happenstance. Today's students are really intelligent. Today's students watch more YouTube and more TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat than they actually do TV shows. And all of the commercials, all of the TV networks understand this. So now they are pushing more streaming ideas because of today's students. So what are some ways that we can tell our story? What are some ways your students can tell their story? Are we giving them those opportunities to share their heart, to speak truth to power, to share, to tell their story? I'm looking at the time here. And so what I'd like for us to do is to go to point 3. When push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. So what I would like for you to think about a moment, we know that this school year is going to start off a little different. We know that this school year is going to start differently. We know it will be a lot of social distancing. We understand that it may be virtual for a lot of school districts. We understand there's some unrest with teachers and unrest and concerns with parents. So this is the one opportunity that we have to blow everything up, metaphorically, to restart what education really looks like, to rethink what education actually looks like. So what I'd like for you to do, instead of having classrooms that look like this or like this, what are some ways we can collaborate inside of our classrooms? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give us breakout rooms really quickly. And what I like for you to do, I like for you to lift up some ideas on how to get away from the traditional ways of education just for this year. So you'll do some turn and talks, and you'll do some share outs, and you'll do some of the things just like that. I will break you all out into rooms. And we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll share some of the things that we lifted up. Welcome back, friends. So just like at the very beginning, I said only 17% people only remember about 17% of what they've learned throughout the day. The very first thing, there's a million things your students haven't done yet, but just you wait. But in order for them to go to do those things, you've got to encourage them. You've got to tell them that there's more in them, just like Miss Henderson did. The second thing, look around, look around. Look how lucky we are to be alive right now. We have students being creators. We have students producing films. We have students producing and creating content that can change the world. And they're doing it outside of the classroom. They can do it inside of the classroom. And the third thing, legacy. What is a legacy? A legacy is what happens when you inspire one person to be great and it follows along and along. The reason Eliza got to tell her story because there was a legacy there. And it took a long time before Hamilton Play came up. And now we know her story. We know that she started an orphanage. So when we're talking legacy, it is really simple. I call it the hidden tiger. Now, on your Nearpod screen, there's a hidden tiger there. And no, I'm not talking about the one that you see in the middle of the screen. I'm saying there is a hidden tiger there. Do you see it? Do you recognize it? I'm not talking about the one in the middle of the screen. Do you see the hidden tiger? Because see, what happens is we're going to have a room full of students this year. And they have talents that we don't know. They have dreams we don't know. And we'll never see that hidden tiger until we really look for it. Do you see the hidden tiger? If not, take a look at the Bengal tiger stripes. If you look real close, you'll see the T, the H, the E, HIDDEN, TIGER. And just like our students, they'll come in at the beginning of the year and then we won't recognize that hidden tiger. But the more and more we get to know them, the more and more we allow them to be creative, the more and more we tell them, you can do great things, you'll discover the hidden tiger. And bringing all of that back around, that little guy who was sitting in that class, bored, upset, frustrated, always making beats. There were some teachers who saw a hidden tiger in him. And by them speaking life into his little body, he's now today speaking and encouraging me. Look around, look around. How lucky we are to be alive right now. I truly appreciate the time. I appreciate you all listening and hanging out with me today. I'm on all social media. I love to create content, as you can see back here. I love to create content and share different ways to inspire students, to inspire teachers, to inspire our world. And so I really appreciate you all hanging out with me today. Thank you for listening.